That was a little bizarre. My apologies. False start. But I believe we're back. I think we're good to go. It looks like we're good to go now. Sorry about that, everybody. Hockey Talk Show live on this Wednesday, February 21st. Apologies for the small technical difficulty. We are trying a Twitch stream tonight, as well as our additional Facebook and YouTube lives, checking out the whole Twitch thing. Let's get into the hockey talk. We got a whole bunch to get into this evening, I should say. A little leftover from the morning show this morning. Erik Karlsson chatter is heating up. Is he on the move? A lot of people seem to think so. Some even seem to think he moves before the February 26th deadline. A Mike Hoffman deal has fallen through. Apparently, there was great interest in Mike, and a no trade got in the way of that one. So we'll cover that. The Dallas Stars and the New York Islanders seem to be standing pat, and the New York Rangers are gaining. Plus, we had a trade today in the National Hockey League. It was not all that insignificant of a move. It involved the Washington Capitals. We get into all that and a whole lot more. A lot of NHL trade rumors on this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Welcome in Wednesday, February 21st, wherever you're watching and however you're consuming the Hockey Talk Show. Certainly do appreciate having you there. Lots of hockey news to get into, and we do not want to waste any time. Number available to you, 631-438-1768. 631-438-1768. And, of course, you can also just shoot us a message on Facebook or YouTube, and we have the Twitter rolling at Hockey Talk Show. That's at Hockey Talk Show. Comment below on YouTube and Facebook. Please let me know that you're in the room. And also, if the quality is okay, one of the reasons why we haven't started on Twitch just yet is because we were worried about our stream quality being altered on the other two sites, Facebook and YouTube. So we wanted to hold off to make sure that we were good. And it does look like we are. Now, I don't know if we're on the Twitch tonight. We're not going to worry about it. I don't know how important this Twitch is. You guys are consuming the show all day. Do we need another channel? Do we need a Twitch? Is not Facebook and YouTube okay? I thought it was. I don't know. If it's not, you let me know. Are we not on the Twitch? I don't think we're on the Twitch. All right, we'll figure out the Twitch for some other day. I thought we were going to be. I thought we were going to try the Twitch. They tell me there's a lot of people on the Twitch, but I don't know. We're not coming through right now, so perhaps we messed something up. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're there on Twitch. All right, whatever. Apologies to the Twitch community. How about this to start off the Hockey Talk Show for the day today? We have Jarome Iginla trying to make a comeback. How about that? We didn't get to this yesterday. I knew about it going into the show, but there was just so much to cover on yesterday's show that we literally did not have a free second to talk about the fact that Jarome Iginla was out there for the Providence Bruins sporting number 88, trying to mount a comeback. How unbelievable is this? Jarome Iginla trying to make a comeback. Could you imagine if somebody acquired Jarome Iginla as a deadline maneuver? What do you think of that? Does he have enough left in the tank? Can Jarome Iginla make it happen? And I don't know. I really don't know. I'd be curious to see. I'm not going to lie to you. I would definitely tune in. To see if he has anything left in the tank. I know a lot of people are curious to find that out. We'll have to wait and see. I think, was there another shot of Jarome? No, I don't think so. I thought I might have had another one of him sporting the 88. No, I don't think so. God, Jerome McGinley. How about that? Imagine a Jerome McGinley comeback. That would be something else. The Karlsson stuff has really heated up, and I want to get into that. Of course, we'll take your comments on Facebook and YouTube, wherever you like to watch the show. We always thank you. And, of course, if you're streaming on the podcast, you got to let us know, rate and review. That's how we climb up the charts on the podcast. And, of course, our home is always hockeytalkshow.com. That's hockeytalkshow.com. Caps making a move today. I know we got some big Caps fans that follow the Hockey Talk Show pretty closely, which I love. Not a bad move. They go out and they acquire young Jacob Jerabek. I like the move. They don't give up too much for Jacob. It's not a stretch for them. They get their depth that they need. You know, they're in there a little bit, and they're showing their players that they want it. They lose now. The Caps lost Taylor Chorney to Columbus on waivers, but they make a move with the Canadiens, and they're only giving up a 5th-round draft pick in the 2019 NHL draft. To me, this is a solid move because you're not sacrificing your roster, right? You're not making any major sacrifices there. You're not affecting your draft status all that much. I mean, a 5th-round pick isn't all that bad, you know? And you got a defenseman who is big on the upside. Sorry, I apologize for that. You got a defenseman who is big on upside, a lot of upside to young Jacob Jerabek. He's the kind of guy that hasn't really proved himself so much so in the NHL, but he hasn't really played all that much in the NHL. When you look at his career over the course of his time playing, he's done fairly well, and he's done fairly well recently. He went from a kind of, you know, just to give you an idea, he was playing in the Czech Republic. Okay? Let's go back to 2011, 2012. He's playing in the Czech Republic, 2011, 2012. He's got a goal and 3 assists in 32 games. Some of them, you know, there's not a whole ton of, sometimes these games are quick. They switch leagues. So you'll notice when you're looking at stats for players in other parts of the country that it can be incredibly limited to just a few games. So you look at Jerabek and 1 goal, 3 assists, 32 games. 2 goals, 6 assists in 49 games. 47 games in the 2013-2014 season, 1 goal, 12 assists. And then he makes the leap. 2014-2015, 48 games, 7 goals, 25 assists. 7 goals and 25 assists. So he picks up and makes a pretty big jump there. And if you keep going through his career stats, he jumps up again in 15-16, playing 52 games, 4 goals, and 29 assists. So the guy has got some versatility. The guy knows how to move the puck up the ice. The problem is he hasn't really done it up here on this level. 1 goal, 3 assists in 25 games with the Montreal Canadiens. But again, it was with the Montreal Canadiens, so take that with a grain of salt, if you will. I think this is a solid move for the Caps. Gives them the depth. Doesn't mean that they can't go out there and get a big-time defenseman. There's not too many available these days, but the possibilities are there. He doesn't impede their plans all that much, and now they have a little bit of depth going down to the playoffs. I mean, the Caps know that they want to make a deep run as they make, you know, a lot of the times, and they got to have the depth there to do it. And to me, this is a great depth acquisition. You lose Chorney, but that's okay. That's okay. Jerabek, Kempney, the Caps are making some moves. The Caps are telling their team they want to go. Dominic, how about the Bruins? Definitely a cup contender. the Bruins are a cup contender. The way we were talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning at the beginning of the season is kind of the way people are looking at the Bruins right now. They are just on fire. They've got the momentum. They're playing well. They're tough to play against. They're not far behind the Tampa Bay Lightning anymore. At one point, we thought the Tampa Bay Lightning were uncatchable. They're just 1 point behind them now, and they have 2 games in hand. At this point in the season, they've become the team in the East to beat. Now, I still don't think that Tampa Bay is anything to sneeze at. I think Tampa Bay is going to be there, but let's be honest. Tampa's 1, Boston's 2. Toronto could catch up, but they're 3 points behind Boston. Let's say the standings stay the way they are. Even if they flip-flop a little bit, Boston over Tampa or vice versa, they're still not going to meet each other in the first round. So a Boston-Tampa meeting later on in the playoff rounds could be at hand. Could be a good one. I don't know about the O'Gara trade. I'll tell you this. I like the O'Gara trade. I like it. Nick Holden's not going anywhere for you. You go out there and you get a 3rd-round pick for him, and you have a defenseman that could come in and play. Let's not forget, O'Gara is a local kid. He's from Massapequa, from Long Island. He's about a half hour away from where I am right now. And he's going to go and he's going to suit up for the Blue Shirts. Now, even the most diehard Islander fans, which it's possible this O'Gara is, since he's on Long Island, he grew up on Long Island, even the most diehard Islander fans wouldn't mind playing in Madison Square Garden for the Blue Shirts. It's just a great place to be. What do you think about Jerome McGinley coming back for the Boston Bruins? How about that for the question? Where was our little photo? There he is. Bam. There's Jerome in his Providence Bruins sweater, warming up, seeing if he has anything left in the tank. He spoke to a couple of reporters about why he's even there, and he says, I don't feel like retiring just yet. I don't feel like retiring at all. I'm going to see if I still got a little bit in me. Can he skate with the guys down in the AHL? We'll see. We'll find out. Interesting that he's doing it now. By the way, he's a free agent, so I don't believe he needs to be added to any roster prior to the February 26th trade deadline. I could be mistaken about that. I know there is some sort of a rule that you have to be on the roster. Is that baseball? I think that's baseball. You have to be on the roster at some point or have to have played a certain amount of regular season games or something to get into the playoffs or the Stanley Cup Finals. There's something there. I don't know. I'll look it up. There's definitely something there. I don't know if it's baseball, if I'm confusing baseball now, or if I'm confusing hockey. I don't really know. Uncle Buck, do you think Tampa can get Karlsson without having to give up Sergachev or Point? This is seems to be the topic of debate for the day today. I will say this about the Karlsson thing. Let's get into that. Let's not make anybody wait anymore to talk about Erik Karlsson. The consensus around the National Hockey League, to me, seems to be that Karlsson's going to go. Whether or not he goes before the trade deadline or not seems to be something that's a little bit up for debate. There are still people that say he's not going at all. But there are some people that say, look, the relationship is damaged. There's no coming back from it. They're not going to pay him. They don't have the money to pay him. It's going to be 95's team moving forward, and everybody's going to have to deal with that. I mean, by all accounts, Dorian brought in young Mr. Matt Duchene, and I think he's pretty prepared to build this team around Matt Duchene. I think the move around Karlsson is an interesting one because I'm not entirely sure he doesn't go for a rental. I think it's possible. I think Tampa certainly can pull a deal here. Uncle Buck brings up a good question. Can they do it without Sergachev or Point? That I don't know. That I really, really don't know. Now, from what I understand, the consensus among a few pundits in the hockey world is that the Tampa Bay Lightning have an extraordinary amount of prospects, an embarrassment of riches, if you will. So if there's a team that can acquire him without giving up some of their players that are currently on the roster, it would be the Tampa Bay Lightning. I would also say the St. Louis Blues could do it. I would also say, who else? I don't really think there's many others. But I honestly don't think that the Tampa Bay Lightning could get away with it, even though they have 5 or 6 prospects in the minors that are highly, highly touted. I don't think that they can do it, and here's why. If I'm the Ottawa Senators, I want Sergachev, right? I want Point. I want Gord. I want one of these guys. And I don't know if Tampa's ready to give up on them. That's why I find the Tampa Ryan McDonagh concept so intriguing to me, because I look at Tampa as a team that doesn't need to do a thing, yet they're in a lot of trade rumor buzz right now. And I don't really understand it. Evander chiming in. He's with me on this one. Tampa wants Karlsson or McDonagh, but don't want to give up big pieces for big name players. Well, that's Stevie Y. Guy's a tough negotiator. He doesn't take no guff. Stevie Yzerman is a tough negotiator. You saw what he did with Steven Stamkos. Took him down to the wire. And I don't think Stevie Yzerman broke a sweat for a second. Dominic, Florida Panthers could get Karlsson. They certainly have the room. Do they have the prospect package to give up for it? Dale Talon tends to be a patient general manager and knows how to run his scouts to run a good draft. So I think he's got some time. By the way, he certainly has the excuse since he was unceremoniously kicked aside for a year and a half. So he's bought himself a little more time as far as putting that roster back together. I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know what they would have to give up for Karlsson. It also depends on how desperate the Senators are to give him away. And I don't think they're too desperate because they can part with him. They can wait and they can part with him. But I think that, and I think Nick Caprios made this point today, which is that you're never going to get the most out of him as you are right now. Like, you have the most amount of term you're possibly going to have for an Erik Karlsson. And in the case of a Tampa Bay Lightning, where they would want to acquire him and hold on to him for 2 postseasons, and then who cares if they sign him or not, now is the time where you can get the most as far as prospects and picks goes. But if I'm the Ottawa Senators, I want prospects, picks, and I want, I want a good player for right now, or somebody that I know I could put in the lineup and help build around Matt Duchene with. Help Stone and help Hoffman and all these guys. Speaking of Mike Hoffman, I found this to be pretty interesting. This little tidbit of information. There was a deal reportedly in place, and maybe not, I shouldn't say in place, but there was discussions between the Winnipeg Jets and the Ottawa Senators for Mike Hoffman. And this is the problem with no trade moves and the fact that there are so many now. Hoffman has 2 years remaining on his deal. Winnipeg is on his no trade list. So what that means is if the Winnipeg Jets want him, if the front office, if Pierre Dorian is going to go to Mike Hoffman and ask him to waive his no trade, he's got to get a haul. He's got to get a hell of a haul. A Taylor Hall haul, if you will. He's got to pull in a lot. Because you're not going to sit there and hem and haw and is this enough and then go ask Mike Hoffman if he wants to waive his... Like, you got one shot at that. You really do. So you got to sort of have a king's ransom in there. But the Jets didn't want to pay that high price, which is kind of crazy because if his no trade isn't in effect for Winnipeg, they could have probably gotten him for a lot less. But because he has a no trade and the offer wasn't high enough for Ottawa to cross that line and ask him to waive, the deal fell apart. And I think the two have moved on. The shame of this is, I think Evander Kane is the most easily attainable option in the free agent market right now. Or it's not the free agent market, but in the potential free agent market for trades as far as that goes. And I don't think anybody is that eager to bring Evander Kane back to Winnipeg. As you remember, it didn't really go well with him while he was there. I think Thomas Tatar is a good option for them. Elliot Friedman had his 31 thoughts, and there was some light shown on the Detroit Red Wings, too, and the fact that they've had Gustav Nyquist and Thomas Tatar available, both players available, but both players available at different times. We've seen this move from Ken Holland before. It was, I'm going to trade Mrazek. No, I'm going to trade Jimmy Howard. No, I'm going to trade Mrazek. That little flip-flop back and forth. We talked yesterday at length about the Detroit Red Wings desperately needing some help. And I don't know if... I think they got to unload just about everybody. But I think that Karlsson's going to go. I said this before. But here's the thing that I think is going to kill everybody, that he doesn't go for a rental. I still am of the mindset of Karlsson could go to the Rangers for Ryan McDonough. I think you do a close to one-on-one deal. I think that Ottawa could have the upper hand in that and ask for something else, whatever that piece would be, a second-round pick, a third. I don't know if they can get away with the first. Maybe a prospect to go along with it. To me, that makes the most sense from a hockey trade standpoint. You get McDonough for another year. You have McDonough for a year. You have a year to sell Ryan McDonough on the Ottawa market. And if you can't re-sign him, which we all agree he would be a cheaper re-sign than Karlsson would be, because Karlsson's talking about $9-10 million, and we all know that McDonough's not going to get there, especially the way he's played lately. But you get McDonough for a year, and then you can try and re-sign him for less than you would of Karlsson, which will help you out with Stone and Duchesne and everybody else. And if you can't, then you can flip him for something else next season. Dominic, Boston isn't done working the blue shirts. They really want McDonough for a cup run. I keep seeing that. I think Holden might be it. Although, I got to be honest with you. I did read a whole bunch today saying the Bruins aren't done. And the Bruins are still talking with Jeff Gorton. So what you're saying there, Dominic, isn't entirely out of the question. It really isn't. I did find it interesting, though, that Hoffman's deal fell through with the Winnipeg Jets. I think what this all means altogether is we are in for one hell of a trade deadline day. One hell of a trade deadline day. Now, I think we're going to try and be on for the better part of the day on the trade deadline. We are certainly not going to, I'm not going to lie to you, we're not going to be in a position to break news, but we'll have it maybe 5 or 10 seconds after it breaks. We may not do a straight through run. We may take a couple of breaks. So we might wind up doing 4 or 5 shows throughout the course of that day on Monday. But we're definitely, we haven't really figured it all out yet, but we're definitely going to be a part of the trade deadline day hoopla. That's the point of this show, is to be a community to talk hockey. And how could you not on one of the most significant transactional days in the league calendar? Can you see Chris Tanev being moved? And if so, and how much for him? It's an interesting question. I know that he's hurt. And I know that has a huge impact. Just how hurt he is, I think we'll wait and see. And it's a tricky thing because if they really don't generally know how hurt he is and how long it's going to take to recover, it's hard to make that move. As of right now, I think he's a 3 to 4 week. He doesn't have a broken leg, but a fracture in his leg. So I think that can definitely slow some things down. What I did find interesting, though, also in the 31 Thoughts is that Elliot Friedman spoke with an agent in the league, and they were talking about all the players that are being discussed in trade rumors. The question came up of how many untouchable players do you think there really are? Friedman guessed 20 untouchable players. And the agent's response was, I don't think there are that many. Meaning, you got a lot of GMs that are unhappy with underperforming players. Look all around. Think about your favorite team. How many players on your favorite team are underperforming, are not where they want to be at? Right? I mean, across the board. Across the board. I feel like I could name a player on every single team. You know? And to Eddie's point here, Karlsson, 5 goals, 36 assists, 41 points. That's not worth $10 million. You're right. It's not. But I think everybody knows that this is an off year for Karlsson in Ottawa. I think players always get paid just a smidge more than what they're really worth. And Karlsson's going to be a mess. The only thing that kills Karlsson is Doughty. Is if the two of them cancel out. And McDonough, that's a huge year for defensemen. But we all know that if you're going to be looking for a D-man at the end of next season, the offers that you're going to be making are going to go to 65 first. I mean, let's be honest. We can argue all day long about who's the better defenseman, Erik Karlsson or Drew Doughty. I think me personally, like Drew Doughty more. But I'm not dumb. Every team in the league is going to be... who's looking for a defenseman is going to go to Karlsson first before they go to Doughty. Dominic, what's Peter Chiarelli going to do to keep his job at Edmonton? On paper, they should be one of the best teams in the conference. I don't think Chiarelli goes anywhere. Neither does Todd McClellan. I think they have at least another year or two, especially Chiarelli. Especially Chiarelli. If the heat gets turned up on Chiarelli, I can see him turning on McClellan. But I think that the old Oiler way was not working. And I know Oiler fans are frustrated, and I get it. But I don't think anybody wants to go back to where they were. Nobody. Now, Chiarelli will be the first one to tell you he didn't get it done with goaltending. He didn't surround McDavid with the right players, and his bottom six is awful. He made a lot of bad deals, a lot of them with the New York Islanders. That cost him a lot of futures. I think that Ottawa is going to stand, Edmonton is going to stand pat. I think they'll move Maroon. I think they got to get out from under the Lucic deal, and I don't know how they're going to do that. But then again, I didn't know how anybody was going to take the Dion Phaneuf contract, and there's the Los Angeles Kings waving him on over like he was rounding third on a double. I'm like, who? What? The Kings wanted Phaneuf all along? Who knew this? I think Chiarelli's safe. And by the way, I like Chiarelli. He built a winner in Boston. You got to give those guys time. You got to give those guys a little bit of time. I think Lucic is definitely getting shopped. Can you find another general manager more dumb than you are to take him? You know, he really doesn't offer a lot. I mean, if Rick Nash is a stretch, Lucic is a massive stretch. You know? Speaking of Rick Nash, I still maintain that my thoughts on him are true. As we've seen, especially with the Pittsburgh Penguins and everybody else, everybody's calling about Michael Grabner. That seems to be the rumors going around, is that everybody is calling about Michael Grabner. And I don't know how much interest there is in Rick Nash. Now, in other Ranger news, it looks like Chris Kreider will be coming back from his blood clot. Blood Clot Kreider will be back in the lineup for the New York Rangers. 3 years left on a just over $4 million contract. It seems to me that there is zero chatter surrounding Chris Kreider, which makes me think that Kreider is going to be there for the long haul and the rebuild. He's speedy. When he's on, he's brilliant, right? Isn't Kreider that kind of guy? When it's working, you're like, God, I love this guy. And when it's not working, 76 games out of the year, you're like, damn, I hate this guy. Evander, LA Kings be like, hold my beer. Yeah, they really were. That phone rang and it was like, enough, what? Hold my beer. Make this deal right now. I'm going to make this move right now. Speaking of Nash, let's go over to the Dallas Stars. It appears all signs that Jim Nill is not budging. That's his latest. Jim Nill not budging, telling people that the prices are just too high right now. According to multiple sources, the Stars have inquired about Rick Nash plenty, but Nill also understands the glut of buyers looking to add at the deadline and makes this a seller's market, resulting in some inflated asking prices the past few weeks. Nill would like to make moves, but is comfortable standing pat if the requests returns remain too lofty. Nill said, and I quote, "Things are going to happen around the league as the days wind down to the deadline. It's just that the prices, at least to me, are still very high." Nill is a good general manager, a really, really good general manager. No disrespect to Brett Hull, but during that time, I thought, when Jim Nill got the nod, I thought, this makes sense. This makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Jim Nill is a phenomenal hockey mind. I can't emphasize this to you enough. For the amount of years that he went not as the man in the chair and the GM chair, he was one of the most respected hockey guys in the league. One of the most respected. What he did in Ottawa. And a lot of people, especially now that Kenny Holland is starting to crumble, a lot of people give Jim Nill a ton of credit for those Detroit Red Wing championship teams. He did a heck of a job in the front office for the Detroit Red Wings. And you can see it. He's made some pretty decent moves for the Dallas Stars so far. Here's my man in Dallas, Dustin. Nill's a smart man. See? Great minds think alike. Dustin, you, me, and Nill, we're pretty smart dudes. I'd wait a few hours before the deadline. Most GMs will probably wait until it's time for the deal. I was just saying moments ago, Dustin, thanks for joining us, brother. I was just saying moments ago, this is going to be a hell of a deadline. Not a hell of a deadline, a hell of a deadline. This is going to be, I think, a deadline for... Now, it could get all blown up. It could be Saturday... Saturday could happen, and there could be 50 trades and 2 on Monday. I don't know. It could happen that way. But I think this is going to be a hell of a deadline because I do think there's a lot of kicking of the tires and there's a lot of conversations, but we've seen a lot of minor deals. No really big moves just yet. And I think that is shaping up exactly what you said for a price drop come deadline time. Because let's be honest, when Jeff Gorton is sitting there with Rick Nash at 12:30 on Monday, he's going to say, you know what, to hell with it. We're not going anywhere. I'll take it. I'll take whatever. He's going to go and he's going to get the best deal that he has on the table. And it's not like he doesn't have a great deal on the table right now. I'm sure he has an offer for Nash on the table. Sounds to me like it's not from Dallas. But I'm sure he has an offer on the table. It's just not good enough for him. And he's also waiting to see who gets desperate. And let's be honest, much like we saw with the Flyers, right? You know, Ben goes down or something like that. Suddenly the price is different. Suddenly the price is different. You know, Minnesota loses Zach Parise for another little while. Suddenly they're going to pay a little bit more to go ahead and acquire whoever it was that they were thinking about acquiring. So you've got a lot of that. You got a lot of that sort of wait and see. A lot can happen in the next 5 days. I mean, a whole heck of a lot can happen in the next 5 days. So it'll be exciting to see where we're at and where we're going to be. I want to say hey to the Renaissance fan, Michael, all checking in on Twitter. Chris, is always good to see you guys. Austin, do you believe that Karlsson will be traded before? My feeling is, and again, Austin, I was just saying this, and thanks for joining. I think to me, the trade that makes the most sense for the Senators is Karlsson to the Rangers for McDonough. And that's the kind of thing that could easily happen in the offseason. Do I think a franchise will get desperate? It's possible. And I know a lot of people are saying Tampa, but here's the thing. I don't see Stevie Yzerman becoming too desperate. I really don't see Yzerman becoming too desperate to overpay for Karlsson. It's up to Dorian and whether or not he feels the pressure and he wants to make the move. You know, I mean, it really, if you're asking for my opinion, for whatever reason, and maybe this is based on the amount of phone calls that are coming in and out, there's been more discussion on Karlsson in the last couple of days than there has been before. So do I think it's possible? I think it's more possible now than it was. I realize that's a cop-out answer. It's more possible than it was. But, you know, I still don't think that Dorian's going to throw him away for nothing. It's either going to be a big haul with prospects and picks, or it's going to be a boring, you know, disappointing deal to everybody who's not the Rangers or the Senators. I definitely can see it going that way, though. I just think so. But Nil is standing pat, and I think it's a smart move, whereas Garth Snow is standing pat, and I think he should be fired for it. It's kind of interesting how that works, doesn't it? I think that if Garth Snow doesn't add, he gets fired. Case in point, let's go to the Flyers, right? The Flyers lose both their defensemen. They go out and they get both their goaltenders. They go out and they get Peter Mrazek. Now, like we talked about, I don't think that Mrazek is the answer to their problems. I don't even know if Mrazek plays a majority of the games. But even if Mrazek sucks to no end, that move is a signal to his franchise that he believes in the guys. Case in point, this is a direct quote from Ron Hextall on the conference call post-trade. Quote, "This is a sign that our players have done a really good job. They've worked extremely hard. We're in a tough situation. You lose your top two goaltenders when you're fighting for a playoff spot, and our players have worked hard for a long time now. And I didn't feel like it was fair not to have a proven NHL goaltender on this team." He's telling everybody, I know Peter Mrazek isn't the answer. I know I didn't just go out and acquire Carey Price or Henrik Lundqvist, but I'm signaling to my franchise that I believe in them, and this was the move to make, and I want to make sure they have everything that they need moving forward to get us into a playoff position. It's more about the message to your team sometimes than it is about the quality of player you're getting. It's more about depth. Is Nick Holden going to save the Boston Bruins? No. When Charlie McAvoy leaves the game early or has to miss a game or two, is it going to be nice to plug in, Nick Holden into that number one slot and not really miss all that much of a beat? Yeah. It's going to be awesome. Austin wants Mike Green for Tampa. Probably the biggest thorn in Pierre Dorian's side is number 25. Is he 25 or 52 now? I think he was 52 in Washington and 25 in Detroit. That's the biggest thorn in his side because it's sexy as hell to go out there and get Erik Karlsson, but you can have Mike Green, who's just as good for all intents and purposes as far as your playoff run. I'm not saying they're equal players overall, but for the next, 20-something games of the regular season and a playoff run, if you have to pay a lot less for him, just as good. Just as good. To me, it's like buying, a non-brand Tylenol. Like, it's same stuff. It doesn't matter. You don't need the fancy packaging. It still works. You want to buy a BMW over a Honda? All right, I get it. But you're telling me there's a difference between the Tylenol and the CVS Tylenol? There's not. Same situation. I'm going to give myself a -5 for that analogy. That analogy kind of sucked. Caps, Grubbies is only back up on the show. Starting at home at some point. I think the Caps have made some decent moves. I don't know if we hear all that much from them moving forward. Again, Mike Green would be a nice fit. I don't know if he goes back there, just like I don't think that Evander Kane goes back there for the Winnipeg Jets. I think Winnipeg is going to be tough. I think Winnipeg, I can see them overpaying for somebody. I don't know if Rick Nash has them on his no-trade list, but I know that Winnipeg wants to add. They want to send the same message to their guys, which I think is important. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Jason Mackey reported that Michael Grabner is the Penguins' target, which makes a ton of sense. Could you imagine Grabner next to 62? Jesus, that's a hell of a lot of speed. That is a hell of a lot of speed right there. That's going to be a fun forecheck and penalty kill to watch. That would be amazing. Columbus has reached out to Pierre Dorian and asked about Derek Brassard. They've also contacted Stan Bowman to talk about Artem Anisimov. Columbus needs to shore up their team for sure. Brassard is still available, but there is doubt the Blue Jackets can or will match what Ottawa is asking. Some have pointed out that Anisimov has a no-move clause, but it drops to a partial no-trade on July 1st, which is why he may prefer to do it now. These no-trade, no-movements are interesting. If he has more of a no-trade or no-movement now, he can control where he goes. If he loses 10 teams, he has a little bit less control. So it sounds like Anisimov might be on his way out. I think it makes a lot of sense. I would say Anisimov. I would say that Patrick Sharp could go to somebody, even though he's been awful. He's $800,000 against the cap, I think, or something like that. I could see somebody wanting to pick up Patrick Sharp. Makes sense for the Dallas Stars, actually. Get Sharpie back in there, see if he can pick something up a little bit. I don't know. You wouldn't have to give up more than a 6th or 7th round pick for him, so it's not that big of a deal. But I can definitely see Anisimov going, and then, like we've been talking about, I think the Chicago Blackhawks make a bigger move in the offseason, rattling that core that has been there for all those cups. All right, we're going to leave it there. Lots from Elliot Friedman, lots of interest, lots of buzz, lots of players that could be on the move. I did also find it interesting. Speaking of we talked about, what were we just talking about a second ago? I don't know, but I wanted to bring it up that Trevor Linden apparently had to really go to bat for Jim Benning to get him re-signed, that it got so bad that Vancouver ownership was going around interviewing other candidates, which is embarrassing to be a part of. But Benning gets the extension nonetheless. Apparently, Linden didn't have to threaten to leave, but it was getting close to him having to say that. Linden's choice was Jim Benning, wants him to finish what he started, and they re-sign him, and he re-signs Eric Goodbranson, taking a huge defenseman off of the defense market. I heard Winnipeg is about to go nuts trade-wise. I wouldn't say nuts, but I think the Winnipeg Jets realized that they caught a little lightning in the barrel this year. They got the goaltending. It's unproven. It's great. It's been hands down amazing. And they're playing well, and Scheifele and everything. It's wonderful stories. But is it a 1-year thing? They want to solidify that. Here's the thing with Winnipeg. And this was the same thing with Tampa years ago. It's the same thing with the New York Islanders. It's the same thing with Anaheim before they got big and on their runs. When you're not one of these traditional market teams and you're not with a tradition of winning and you're having a great year, you gotta ride that wave for as long as you possibly can. You look at the Atlanta Thrashers before they were the Winnipeg Jets. That year they went out and got Keith Tkachuk and all those guys. They went for it big time. They mortgaged a lot of the future, which kicked them in the ass in return, but they went for it. So I think that Winnipeg is definitely looking to add. I don't know if they're going to go crazy. Kevin Cheveldayoff is a talented manager, and he's stood pat with this team, and it's clearly paid off for him this year. Can the goaltending stay there? You know, is this it for them now? Like, is this the kind of goaltending and play they're going to get from all their top guys forever? Because for a long time, it's been a team that hasn't really been able to put it together, kind of floating around in a tough division. You know, obviously a lot of better teams, but since the collapse of Chicago, and there's been a little bit of an opening there for them. You know, are these their guys moving forward? Is Connor Hellebuck this damn good? Is Hutchinson, is he this serviceable? Is Mason where he's at? You know, I love their defense. Trouba, Myers, Enstrom, Bufflin. Like, it's a great D core. You know, their offense has always been suspect. Patrick Laine has come in and fixed that a little bit. His play has elevated everybody else's play. And some of these guys are getting up there in age too. So that's another thing to consider. You know, you got some guys that are pretty long in the tooth. So I think they'll make some moves, but I don't know about going completely nuts. I don't foresee them losing their minds all that much. Quiet night in the National Hockey League tonight. I think the Chicago Blackhawks beat the Ottawa Senators on the NHL Network. Tonight is a national game. Dallas and Anaheim. Give me the Anaheim Ducks. Sorry. And Vegas and Calgary. Give me the Vegas Golden Knights at home. Their run continues there. I think a much more exciting night tomorrow night. Isles and Toronto. There'll be a ton of questions about John Tavares and his contract status. Thinking about maybe a guest tomorrow on the show to talk Garth Snow. Devils in Minnesota. Minnesota's been great. Came in, beat the Islanders. They're fighting for a playoff spot. Columbus and Philly are super close. They're playing each other. Rangers and Montreal, the two wipeouts this year. Tampa and Ottawa. Buffalo and Detroit. Florida. Tomorrow is going to be a good night for hockey. So we'll get into that all on tomorrow's show. Apologies for the stutter step up at the beginning, but great questions all around. Everybody, we're back again tomorrow, of course, 5 Live every week. Every day we got a live show, and we're going to rest up over the weekend because trade deadline comes Monday, and we will certainly be talking about any of the moves that happen. I don't know if I have a ton going on this weekend, so if there is a move over the weekend, we may pop the channel on just to talk hockey. So make sure you guys are looking out for that. Make sure you're following all around Facebook and Twitter and Instagram so that you know the second we go live, you don't miss a second. Make sure you're getting our notifications on YouTube. Hit the little bell, get notifications. And on Facebook, go over, follow, and make sure on that menu that pops up, you say you select see first. Because if you don't do that, Facebook won't tell you when we're on live. So you got to make those moves. Those are the transactions you need to make before the deadline comes. Do that right now. Enjoy the night of hockey.